Hello, this is Belinda. I'm back today to share my second project as guest designer for Cut to You. Today I'm using the Spring Roses cut file, and I'm just going to talk you through a little bit of what I've done here and what I'm going to do with this layout before I get stuck in. So I've chosen to do this photo of my husband and I, which I think is from about a year ago. Now the Spring Roses cut file comes with this beautiful rose design, and then there's also some holes punched out around it where the leaves are. So what I've done is in my Silhouette Studio software, I've duplicated the file, made one a little bit larger than the other. Then I've cut the actual rose design from some white cardstock, and as you can see off camera, as I can hope you can see off camera, I've spent a lot of time stitching around through that cut file with a graduated tone thread. And then I know you're not going to be able to see this on here, but I'm sure you will once I go through the process. Then I've cut out the holes for the stitched leaves out of this background, what's going to be my background paper, which is from Cocoa Vanilla Studio. I am going to do a bit of mixed media on here, so I will pop you on fast forward and get stuck in. So I'm going to put this background paper aside for now because I've got some plain white cardstock that I'm going to use to create a custom made backing for the rose cut file. I'm using my watercolor palettes. These were fairly inexpensive, and I realized after this little project that there's actually not a lot of pigmentation in them, and the little color palettes don't go very far. So I have now gone and bought myself a set of liquid watercolors, and I'm going to see how they go. So you will have seen just then that I've held up my stitched cut file against the watercolor palette just to choose a couple of complementary colors for the thread that I used. So there's a peachy orange, there's a pink, and then there's a peachy pink. And I've just got my pot of water there, and you will have also seen that I've pre-wet some of those watercolors with just a little spray bottle. And there's no real what's the word? I don't have a plan for this. I'm just adding color in splotches across the page where I think it will go well. So I'm starting off with that peachy orange, and now I'm going in and adding in some of the peachy pink, and I'm just filling in the spots. It's not terribly exciting to watch, but I have decided to keep this video a little bit longer and cut out less of the process. So leave me a comment in the box below. Let me know, do you prefer to see the longer process videos with more of the process in, or would you rather something that's been trimmed down so you just see the bare minimum? Yeah, I personally like a bit of both, but I'm interested to know what you think. So you can see it's really starting to come together now. And just to finish it off, I'm adding a few more sprays, and then I'm going in over the top with a packaging technique, just with some plastic packaging. And that's just to kind of smush the colors around a little bit more and give it a bit more of a watercolor effect, I guess. That's all done. Now, I mentioned that I was going to do some mixed media on the background here. So where I've got the leaves or the holes cut out for the leaves, I'm taking my watercolor palette again with a really soft minty green and a fine paintbrush, and I'm just going in and I'm going to paint inside each of the little leaves. I know it's really hard to see where the holes are pierced on the video, but I'm just going to do that really carefully. I did toy with the idea of masking around them, but it was just going to be take too much time, and I'd already spent a lot of time on this layout. So I've just got a really fine watercolor brush, and I'm going to go in and fill all those in with that pretty mint green. And then I'm going to grab some matching green thread, and I'm going to stitch around the edges. So you can see now I've backed those, the rose files with that beautiful watercolor paper that I made, and I've also stitched around each of the leaves. I did end up adding a couple of extra stitches at the end of each of the stems of those leaves because I found they just didn't quite meet up with the rose cut file. I think maybe it shrunk a little bit while I was stitching around it, but that's okay. So I have decided that I'm going to matte this entire background because I couldn't resist getting a little bit more of that beautiful watercolor. See how pretty is that? I don't use watercolor a lot. I don't use mixed media a lot. But after doing this, oh my goodness, I'm so in love. It looks so much better in person than it does on the video too. So I'm going to trim a very fine border because I wanted to hoard this paper. I loved it so much. Probably what I'll do is take a little heart punch and punch out a whole heap of hearts with it and use them as an embellishment on another page somewhere. But it is a really, really fine border that I'm cutting. So it's only going to be a very thin mat around that background paper. And because of that, I've had to use some really, really thin double-sided tape just to get that to stick. So now I'm ready to adhere the flowers down onto the page, and because it is quite chunky and also because I was just wanting to save a little bit of time, I'm just going in with some quick dry wet adhesive. It also helps me to move it around a little bit to get it in place properly because I really wanted to make sure that those stitched leaves on the background lined up well with the cut file. My glue's running empty. I don't know, I would have dozens of different wet adhesives and I'm still searching for the perfect one for me. So now to add a little bit of texture around the page, what you're seeing me do now is using my fingernail. If I'd thought about it, I would have used my distressing tool before I put that background down, but it was something that came to me afterwards. So I'm just getting my fingernail and I'm running it along the outside of that wood grain background, and I'm really distressing the edges as much as I can. So you can see I'm using my fingernail. What I've got is the paper is sitting underneath the nail and then I'm pulling along, and then I'm also adding a few little extra tears and I'm really smushing that paper down on the edge just to give it some extra texture and just to add a little bit more interest to the page because, I mean, look at it. It's not interesting enough already, right? It's so interesting. It's such a cool cut file. Love it. Now I'm going to get my photo matted. So as I usually do, I'm starting off with some plain white cardstock. I've just grabbed this from a pile of leftover cardstock that I've got sitting behind. And then I decided to shop my scrap stash to get this photo backed. So I've just gone through, I don't have a huge pile of scraps. It's just a little 12 by 12 box that's probably about 2.5 inches deep and it's not even half full. So I don't have a lot of scraps, but I've just gone through and I've pulled out some papers that I think are complementary for this page. And I've started off with that really pretty peachy orange acetate, which I could never really make work on a layout. I think I've used it in a pocket page notebook for my one little word for 2019, but other than that, I've never really figured out a way to make it work. But it works really well as a photo mat because I can add adhesive. So I started off doing that, and then you'll see that I think pretty much all of the layers for this photo are offset, so I don't actually do any straight layers, which again is something a little bit different for me because I'm very much I'm a neat and orderly kind of person, but again, I really love the way that it looks having it offset, so I think I need to push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit more and start doing this kind of thing more often. You will have also seen that I've used my distress tool around the edges for some of those papers, and I have also torn some, and I'm just using my scissors to cut those layers out don't use the scissors a heck of a lot. I tend to prefer my paper trimmer, and again, that's just because of that whole straight and orderly thing. But yeah, I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. I think most of the papers that you're seeing here, well, actually no, some of them are coming out of, some of them have come from some very old Studio Calico kits. There looks like there's some Cocoa Vanilla in there, perhaps some Maggie Holmes from a paper pad that I've got. But yeah, I liked using the scraps, and I liked that I got to play with mixing a lot of different patterns together. It's another thing I'm not particularly good at. I'm not good at picking coordinating patterns, but that's just laziness. I don't make myself do it often enough. I tend to reach for papers from the same kit or from the same collection, and yeah, it's pure laziness. So I definitely need to do a little bit more coordinating of papers. So I've just grabbed a little bit of foam because I do want to mount that that photo up to pop it off the layout. And I can't recall, yeah, so I've only added the foam to one side of the photo, and the reason for that is that the other side is sitting on top of that cut file. And with the cut file and the backing and the stitching, it is quite, it does sit up quite a bit off the page, so I didn't need the foam on the right hand side of the photo, I only needed it on the left. And then I remembered that I was going to add these photo corners and completely forgot about it, so I'm doing it the hard way, and I'm adding the photo corners after I've adhered that photo down to the backing, to the photo mat. So it's, yeah, there's a hot tip for you. If you're adding photo corners, do it before you mat the photo. And for my title, I'm going to keep it really simple. I've got so many of these sets of thickers with the titles on them, and they're not in a spot that's particularly visible to me, so I don't reach for them. But I did know I had this one which said Better Together, and that was perfect. So I'm going to use that, and it nestles in so well inside that little spot on the top right. There was a little patch on that letter that the gold had chipped off, so I just grabbed a gold Sharpie and filled that in, and you can't see it. I have learnt my lesson about using these thickers, that the adhesive is just not super great, so I'm adding a little bit of extra wet glue to the back of each of those foam stickers. And then I'm also going to use some of the little gold foil hearts which came from that same thickers set. I'm keeping the embellishing fairly simple for this layout because that cut file just really is the feature, and I didn't want to take too much away. It doesn't need to have anything more than just some simple embellishments. So I have got those gold hearts, chipboard hearts from the thickers set, and it also has some pink chipboard hearts which go perfectly with the pinks that are in the watercolor and also in the photo mat. So I'm just adding some of those hearts in two places on my layout, up around the title and down the bottom left of the photo. Not too many. I've added 5. Always try to keep uneven numbers of embellishments just for balance on the layout. And now I'm going to come in with these enamel shapes, and I'm just picking the circles, the dots, and it's a really pretty minty greeny blue that doesn't quite match with the leaves, but it's pretty close. And I'm just going to add a couple of those amongst my little heart mini clusters. And now coming in with my journaling. It's super simple. This photo didn't have a really big story to go along with it. It was just a photo of my husband and I, before he was my husband, on one of our very rare date nights. So I think I've just journaled loving our life together, and then date night and the date. And it fits in nicely there underneath that title, just nestled in perfectly, which I loved. So the only thing I wanted to do to finish off this layout was to add some Heidi Swap Gold Colour Shine. Now I do have a question for people who use this. No matter how much I shake it up, I always seem to get a little oily ring around my sprinkles. Is it my bottle? Am I not shaking it up enough? Am I doing it wrong? Leave me a comment and let me know. But what you're about to see here is the boo-boo on this layout. So I've tried to add some fine sprinkles and instead added 2 huge blobs at the bottom of the layout there underneath my photo. It's a really awkward spot because I know that I can't put anything over the top of them to cover it up without throwing out the entire balance of the layout. So what I've done is I've just grabbed some paper towel and I've soaked up as much of the liquid as I possibly can. And then I'll come in with a pink, dusty pink tassel-y trim, and I will adhere that to the base of the photo. And although it doesn't completely cover up those gold blobs, it does a good enough job that they're not super noticeable, and that's fine. I'm happy enough with that. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Please go ahead and visit the Cut to Use shop if you wanted to pick up this beautiful Spring Roses stitched cut file. Thank you for sticking with me. I know I haven't been super consistent posting videos, but life is just really hectic this year. So thank you for sticking with me. If you're not already a subscriber, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching and have a great day.